Matcha is the pinnacle of powdered Japanese green tea. However, when it comes to loose leaf green tea, one name sits at the top. It's the Gyokuro. In this video, I'll tell you everything you need to know in order to quickly understand what Gyokuro is. And at the end, I'll share why I love Gyokuro so much. Hi, I'm Yuki, I'm the founder of Tea Life, and here we break down Japanese tea so you can become a Japanese tea expert. Gyokuro is a premium Japanese green tea, and it's widely considered the highest expression of loose leaf green tea that's available in Japan. The word Gyokuro means jade dew. That obviously sounds very precious. And it is. Gyokuro is much more expensive than normal or other loose leaf Japanese green tea, and it only comes second in terms of price to matcha. It's expensive because of how it's grown. It's similar to matcha in that it's shaded before harvesting, and the amount of shading is very similar to that of matcha as well. We'll talk about the shading a little bit later in the video. But first, let's talk about the taste. Gyokuro is an espresso of a sencha. If sencha is a cup of coffee, Gyokuro is a shot because you drink in such a condensed form. Just like the coffee lover who wants to drink the coffee in its most purest form, the Japanese tea lover would want to drink the Gyokuro in its most thickest form. So it's a very similar concept here. It would be a very small volume, extremely high leaf to water ratio, and it would be a super intense sip. The flavor is extremely dense. You get very strong sweetness and umami and savory brothiness. And this comes in a super thick liquid form that's almost like a jelly. The best part about this is you get this very strong hit of L-theanine, which is a strong calming amino acid. The L-theanine is present in many Japanese green teas, but you get this through the Gyokuro in its most purest form. Therefore, the preparation is extremely different from a normal sencha. Obviously, you don't brew Gyokuro using boiling water. You don't even use 70 degrees or 80 degrees water like a sencha. You actually reduce the temperature to like 50 degrees Celsius, and then you want to slowly brew. And you want to brew with a small amount of water. And this is to amplify the umami and the sweetness as much as possible while reducing the astringency and bitterness so you can really have the drink. You can take it in at its most purest form. And this is the reason why it has to be shaded during harvesting. So for Gyokuro, similar to matcha, from about 20 days before harvesting, they will start to cover the tea fields with nets to block the tea trees from the suns. Why does this matter? Because the sunlight changes the chemistry. When the tea plants are exposed to the sun, the L-theanine in the tea trees, they will reduce. And instead, the green tea catechins will start to appear. The green tea catechins are more the astringency and the bitterness of the taste. So you want to reduce that as much as possible. In order to do that, that's why the shading happens. By shading, you allow the L-theanine to continue to grow while not producing the catechins as much. So in a sense, you shock the tea leaves by blocking them by the sun, and then that makes them become very delicious. It's kind of like, you know how they say, tough life builds character? It's kind of like that for the tea trees. Let's talk about the nutrients and health benefits of Gyokuro. As we touched upon, because Gyokuro is shaded, it shifts the chemistry of the tea leaves. And for Gyokuro, the most important compound is by far the L-theanine. Now, the shading of the tea leaves, they prevent the tea leaves from converting the L-theanine to the catechins. They don't technically convert, but that basically happens. So if you compare a sun-grown sencha to a cup of Gyokuro, there's a fair bit of differences in the nutrients included. So for Gyokuro, there would be a lot more of the L-theanine present in the tea. On the other hand, there would be a lot less of the catechins in the tea. What you will also notice is there is a very strong presence of caffeine. Now, the interesting thing is L-theanine is associated to calm focus. And caffeine is actually associated to, as you would probably know, stimulation. So this is a very interesting combination. So together, this is what people tend to call a smooth, steady alertness, or waking up without the caffeine crash. So the caffeine is counterbalanced with the L-theanine, and that's why for many people drinking Japanese tea, you don't get the jitteriness that you would get with a coffee, for example. Now, when people talk about Japanese green tea's health benefits, usually what happens is they associate it to the green tea catechins, especially the catechin called EGCG. These are antioxidants again, and these are extremely powerful compounds when it comes to health benefits. And from that perspective, to be really honest, Gyokuro is not the most efficient way of maximizing the green tea catechin intake in your body. Again, because shading, first of all, it reduces the amount of catechins that's present in the tea leaves. And on top of that, when you actually brew the tea leaves, you use lower water temperatures. This is also important because the green tea catechins, they would seep into the water at higher temperatures than 80 degrees. So the efficiency dramatically reduces when it's steeped at lower than 80 degrees Celsius. So if your objective is pure antioxidant intake, then actually Gyokuro is not what I recommend for you to drink. In that case, I would recommend a Sencha using boiling water to extract, or even a powdered green tea. But obviously, health isn't really only just one compound. Gyokuro provides something very different. It provides something very calming, and yet something very mentally clarifying. It's the ultimate luxury that people sought for. Now let's quickly talk about the history of Gyokuro. Gyokuro was developed in 1835 in the late Edo period. So it's only been about 2 centuries old. This innovation is credited to a person called Yamamoto Kaihei. He's actually a tea merchant in Uji. Now what's interesting is about a century earlier, the Sencha method has just been created around that Uji area. Even before that, the shading technology has been used for tencha creation in the Uji area as well. So Yamamoto Kaihei, he basically put these two together to shade the sencha leaves and create Gyokuro. And the marketer that he branded the leaves as Gyokuro, Jade Dew. Let's do some basic comparisons between Gyokuro and other types of tea. So first of all, Gyokuro and Sencha. So Sencha is very similar to Gyokuro except for that it's not shaded, and because of that, the way you brew it is also very different. Sencha, you would use hotter water in order to brew. So Sencha would be brighter and warmer in notes. It would be more astringent, as opposed to the Gyokuro being more deep and thick and full of umami and brothiness. So very different profiles. Again, it's the coffee versus the espresso. So what's the difference between the Gyokuro and the matcha? So these are similar in a way that they're both shaded during harvesting. However, Gyokuro is a loose leaf tea and matcha is a powdered tea. Because you're drinking the tea leaves directly, you'll also be drinking lots of the different compounds that won't extract through normal brewing. Gyokuro, in a sense, will be more pure. It'll be more clean and clear compared to the matcha, which you basically intake everything that's included in the green tea leaves. So come to think of it, it's very interesting because they're entirely different drinks, despite the fact that they're very similar in terms of the plant itself. Not only is the cultivation method the same, also oftentimes the cultivar could be the same as well. And that's why I really like Gyokuro. I really love matcha as well, but I equally love Gyokuro. They're different drinks for different occasions. When I want something that's strong and relaxing, clear but pure, then I go for Gyokuro. And I think a big part for me is that I don't feel too rushed to drink a sip of Gyokuro. For matcha, for example, maybe I feel like I want to drink as fast as possible because the temperature can reduce relatively quickly, and then also the foam can kind of reduce as well. For Gyokuro, I feel the change is a little bit slower, so you can enjoy a little bit more peacefully. So that's why I really like Gyokuro. Thank you for watching. If you want to learn about Japanese tea deeper than at any other channel, then please subscribe to this channel and also follow the link to subscribe to our weekly newsletter.